Today is Monday, July 6, 2026. I am your host, Norman A. Carter Jr., and today we are bringing to you a very special guest. For those of you listening for the first time, we broadcast via several platforms: Facebook, LinkedIn, Roku, YouTube, and nearly every popular streaming services. All of our programs are archived on YouTube and can be viewed by anyone at any time. Now, I'm going to dispense with much of my opening commentary because I want to give our guest ample time to discuss with us his journey and his aspirations. But first, allow me to paint a background for you. But before I say that, remember the comments and that you hear on this program from me and my guest are ours and ours alone, and not the feelings or can be attributed to our station management. So let's begin. Uh, Trump tells Texas Republicans to redraw the state congressional map to help the House majority. That was the national headline in July of 2025. There is a poem I often read on this program called First They Came. I am sure most of you ignored my readings on that poem. You find it irrelevant. You might be interested in the sensational rather than what appears to be mundane. But by its very nature and its origin, it is far from mundane. What seemed like an illegal and immoral presidential elective for Texas was actually a mandate for all Republican elected officials throughout this country. The Voting Rights Act had been obliterated by two decisions of the presently corrupt Supreme Court. There is a clear evidence that at least three of them have been bought and paid for by some of the wealthiest people in this country. It is against this background that I introduce our special guest for today, the Honorable Justin J. Pearson, Tennessee State Representative of District 96, 86, 86, and candidate for Tennessee's U.S. Congressional District 9. But please bear with me as I give you some background information about Mr. Justin J. Pearson. Mr. Pearson entered public office on a wave of grassroots energy, winning the Tennessee House District 86 seat in 2023. Just weeks into his first term, the world and I watched him stand with two colleagues who became known as the Tennessee Three. They demanded common sense gun laws after a school shooting claimed 6 lives, 3 of those lives were children. Republicans retaliated by expelling him from his seat. That's when he came to my attention. By the end of the year, Shelby County reaffirmed their choice by reelecting him to office. Mr. Pearson began his public service long before he held elective office. It's the kind of guy he is. At 15 years old, he petitioned Memphis City schools for proper textbooks for his classmates. Wow. 2 days later, trucks arrived at the high school with brand new books. People Power won. That early victory foretold a lifetime of organizing. He has successfully fought against billion-dollar oil companies, co-founded Memphis Community Against Pollution, and later helped to shut down a company called Sterilization Services, a facility emitting cancer-causing ethylene oxide into Black neighborhoods. Hey, we have that problem right here in Georgia. He now leads a fight against Elon Musk's AI data center, which is an environmental threat imposed without community input. Unbelievable. Honorable Representative Justin J. Pearson is the fourth of 5 children of Dr. Kimberly Owens Pearson and Reverend Jason C. Pearson. He is the second youngest member of the Tennessee General Assembly. He launched his campaign for Tennessee's 9th Congressional District on October 8th, 2025. He called it a campaign for the people. 91 days ahead of the primary election for this race, the Tennessee General Assembly redrew the congressional lines, splitting Shelby County into District 9, Shelby County District 9, into 3 districts. That eliminated the state's only majority Black district. The district now spans a diverse swath of Middle Tennessee, which crosses 15 counties. There's so much more to talk about, Representative Pearson, but in the interest of time, please allow me to formally introduce my issues and answers viewers to the Honorable Justin J. Pearson, Texas State Representative of District 86 and candidate for Tennessee's U.S. Congressional District 9. Welcome, sir.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be joining you from Memphis, Tennessee, and grateful for you having me on the program today. I really appreciate it.
You're going to inspire me to stop in Memphis the next time I come through that area.
Yeah, come on by.
I definitely will now. I have so many questions, but um, we're going to give you an opportunity to really get out on your platform. But in looking over your biography, I find that you have 250,000 followers on several media platforms. Uh, you have national national influence. Uh, how diversified are your followers, and how will that impact your service in the United States Congress?
Listen, again, thank you so much for having me. Our campaign is rooted in people power. It's a belief that everybody, whether they be the farm worker, the factory worker, the pharmacist, deserves to have representation that addresses their core issues and needs. And we speak up for justice. I've been doing that, as you read in the introduction, since I was fighting for textbooks in my high school, to standing up against multi-billion-dollar crude oil pipeline companies, to now fighting against Elon Musk and a status quo that doesn't work for everyday people. And that message resonates with people in Memphis, with people across the state of Tennessee, across the country and the world, fortunately. And my job is to use my voice, to use the position, the platforms that we have and that I'm in, to continue to advocate for the people who never make it into those rooms, those spaces, or those places. I remind people, I've got a mom with a doctorate degree, and I've got cousins who are incarcerated right now. And every room that I go into, every opportunity that I have is to elevate both sides of that reality. Because the paradigm in this country is that the more privilege you have, the more education you have, the more power you have, the more titles you get, then the better you get treated. And you're supposed to somehow ignore or forget all of the other people who came before who don't experience that. And there are a lot of people with a lot of platforms who don't have conversations like the one we're having today, who don't elevate the issues of our community. And it's my job and my responsibility to do as the scripture tells us, right, to lift up those who've been made last, lost, and least, and to fight on their behalf. And that's what I want to use my voice for. That's what I want to use as I have my job and work as a state representative and now as a running for the United States Congress to do the same thing.
Slightly off script. I was speaking about you to my cousin today. She was immediately, oh, I know who he is. But she compared you to some of the uh, activists who came to elective office in the 60s and 70s. Have you heard that comparison before?
It's always much too kind of a comparison. I am doing very little compared to what those folks did, but humbled by it.
Uh, I I think I think you're very humble. She wasn't the only one who said that because I actually said that myself. But congratulations to you. We had several questions. This is rather sensitive question. Uh, One of the first questions we had for you was, uh, what is your position on reparations and redress of reparative justice for past government atrocities committed against African Americans?
Listen, I believe 100% that we need reparations for enslavement and for the vestiges of slavery that happened after after 1865 and the Civil War. Let's be honest. We still live with the consequences of slavery right now in this country. And after slavery, there was the redemptionist terrorism of the South. And we're now living through a second redemptionist terrorism right now in the South with the rise of the Neo-Confederacy. But there does need to be an intentional reparation of the harm that has been done to Black African American people, to Native Americans as well, who experienced a genocide from this country, because our blood, our ancestors' sweat and tears built this nation. And not once have they gotten recognition for it. right? Not once have they been economically compensated for all that they have contributed to make this the most powerful country in the world. And we, their descendants, deserve to have reparation for compensation for what they have done, and also as recognition that what this country has done systematically against Black and African American people has been horrendous. And has devastated a lot of our opportunity and ability to succeed. And despite all of the barriers that have been put up, despite the lynchings, 6,500 lynchings that have occurred according to the Equal Justice Initiative, despite mass incarceration led by a president of the United States, Ronald Reagan, who pumped crack cocaine into our communities, despite the denial of access to equitable educational opportunities, with more money going to white neighborhoods and wealthier neighborhoods that really were created because they didn't want to be integrated with Black neighborhoods. Despite all of these things, here we are, still in state houses, still with radio stations, still with successful folks. We've done this without reparation of the harm that has been done. And the recognition our country has to make, especially if we're thinking about this 250 years, is to realize its own participation in our political lynching, a social lynching over the last 400 years. And we are responsible for remedying that harm.
Wow. I have never, ever, ever heard it said so well. Thank
Bless you.
you. Never. Uh, the sole purpose of the antiquated Second Amendment was to ensure that this new country and its states could establish armed militias in the event of a foreign attack or to overthrow a government that devolved from a democratic republic to one under authoritarian rule. You and the Tennessee Three were both vilified and expelled by the Republican majority of the Tennessee General Assembly. Will you continue your quest for common sense gun reform in Washington, D.C., where the National Rifle Association is spending millions of dollars to support Republican candidates who want little or no restrictions on gun sales and gun possession?
Listen, we have allowed the NRA to run our politics for much too long. The truth of the matter is, any responsible gun owner wants for other responsible gun owners to have a permit to carry a firearm. I'm a responsible gun owner, as is my wife. We have platinum memberships at a gun range in our community. Everyone who works there believes everyone needs a permit to carry. And these are more conservative people, more libertarian types of folks. But anyone who is a responsible gun owner wants there to be permits to carry for the people who say they are also responsible. Because what's happening right now is in our state and in many states that refuse to have gun safety laws like a permit to carry, 500 kids on average die a year, completely unnecessarily. 500 kids with their futures being wiped away compared to states that have some simple gun safety laws. Because what we learned is if you teach people about storing their guns safely, if you remind them not to leave your firearm in your front seat of your car or on the couch, those lessons actually matter for people, and that training actually matters for people. And ultimately, those kids are able to live and have futures. We've allowed Republicans and the right wing of this country to make our communities less safe simply because they're cashing checks from the NRA and gun lobbyists. It has nothing to do about you or me. It has nothing to do about our safety or our future. It doesn't have to do with the public. In the state of Tennessee, listen to this. 71% of people in the state of Tennessee want more gun safety laws, including MAGA Republicans. 71%. So if you would think if 71% of people agreed on something, that at least 71% of people in the state house, 71% of people in the state senate would agree that we should probably take some action. But that's not what's showing up. What's showing up is these politicians are being bought, they're being paid for, and they are silencing themselves and thus silencing the communities they're supposed to represent for private corporate interest. And the truth is, this happens sadly on both sides. You get Democrats being bought by certain people. You mentioned the Supreme Court being corrupt, right? Like these people are being bought and paid for by folks with money, and who ultimately gets hurt are our communities. Our voices are the ones that don't get listened to. Our visions are the ones that they turn their backs on. And our futures are the one that they sell on the altar of an exploitative plantation economic capitalism that benefits billionaires at the top while the rest of us suffer. And so I continue to fight for legislation to end the gun violence epidemic. I continue to fight for legislation that bans super PACs, these corrupt super PACs, from buying elections, because I know we have to reclaim this democracy. We have to protect our lives, our children's lives, and our communities against people who will willingly sacrifice us and our futures for their own money and their own benefit.
Somewhat on that same subject, and this goes back to making a negative, a positive out of a negative. Do you feel like the Tennessee General Assembly's uh, persecution of you has given you a greater platform, both locally and nationally?
I mean, Mama always told me what the devil meant for bad, God will turn into good. And what was a horrible situation, right? We had hundreds of people dying in our community from gun violence. A mass shooting killed six folks, three 9 years old. We've seen the horrors of gun violence, and the response by Republicans in the state of Tennessee wasn't to address the gun violence epidemic, wasn't to say, all right, let's finally figure out how we stop guns from getting into communities where there are no gun manufacturers. Let's go find out who's bringing the guns into the neighborhoods and find out where those people live in the suburbs and do something about that. Instead of that, they attack democracy and they attack black people. Which is where they feel comfortable, unfortunately. A lot of these white folks in power feel most comfortable when they attack black people who are in positions of power, who are their equals, which a lot of them just can't stand and don't want to believe is happening. But as my mom said, after we got expelled, God will turn this very hard thing into something good, because after that happened, we were able to force the governor of the state of Tennessee to pass an executive order mandating that anyone who purchases a firearm has to have a mandatory background check. After that horrible incident, we were able to build a movement of people and gun safety advocates who are younger and who are older, who are still pushing forward policies that are making it harder for abusers to have access to firearms, helping judges to understand their power to protect women in particular and those who are victims of domestic violence. Like they ignited a movement of people, I think, who really want to stand up against autocracy, against authoritarianism, and who are run. I mean people who are running for office, who are starting their own progressive organizations, who are just doing the work, who otherwise would not have been engaged in politics had that not happened. And so I really continue to see how, even from that very bad situation, good continues to come out of it. Good continues to be made out of it. It's a willful choice of people to say, you know what? This is not how our story has to end. And they're doing something about it. And I'm just grateful to be a part of it.
Well, for those of you who haven't seen, we're talking about it in very clean terms, but that was a very, very ugly situation you were involved in. For those who haven't seen it, I'm sure you can find it out there on social media. But you're to be commended for your courage, not only for withstanding that, but also having the courage to come back and come right back and step right back into the fold. That's a testimony not just of you, but of those who support you. So uh, I don't mean to sound to be like I'm blowing your horn, but uh, uh, it's very courageous. We move on. Uh, Gerrymandering originated, this is educating my public out there because most of you don't know this. Gerrymandering originated in 1812 when Massachusetts Governor Eldridge Gerry signed a redistricting bill creating a contorted district that looked like a salamander. So they combined it and made it called it gerrymandering. It was unfair and immoral then, and it has continued to be practiced today. You and your community have been victim of this slimy practice that
Mhm.
has been engaged by both Democrats and Republicans. Is reform of this practice among your legislative goals?
We absolutely have to do something about gerrymandering and racist redistricting. It was illegal in our state to do what was done to the city of Memphis until the day they decided to do it. They changed the state law to give themselves permission to violate what was state law previously, which was that you can't redistrict in between censuses. And the idea of that was so that you wouldn't be focused on changing districts based on the political whims of the moment. Because what the people in the 1970s who passed that law realized is one day we're not going to be in power, right? And the shoe is going to be on the other foot. And when this happens in reverse, we're going to be upset about it. So they're trying to prevent that from happening. But I think the gerrymandering on either side is becoming dangerous to the ideas of democracy. And we need to have better representation, more fair, more proportional representation in the United States Congress. And there are a couple of ideas that I'm looking to entertain in Congress. One is making sure we have a national, nonpartisan redistricting congressional committee. We need to take this out of state houses completely, put this in an independent, nonpartisan body that is responsible for deciding these districts into the future. The second thing that I've started to hear more ideas of is what would it look like to have more people in Congress? Increase the number of people in Congress, make districts smaller and more compact. Because right now, your congressional district is over 750,000 people. What would it look like to have 300,000 people? Or 200,000 people represented by a congressperson and have those areas be have a little bit more direct democracy into who represents them. So I think there are some ideas out there about what we could do, but the reason it's a priority for me isn't just because our district was racistly redistricted. It's because I actually believe that we need better representation in government. I don't think, and I'll be honest with you, and I might get a little flack from it, but states where Democrats are completely in control, I don't think we should change the maps to make all of the seats 100% Democrats. Even though I'm a Democrat, I want
Mhm.
Republicans to have a voice. That's hard to do right now because of racist redistricting. We're having to have to balance out what is going on in these other states, and I understand that you got to fight and make sure that we have a fair chance of winning back the House because of what the president has decided to do. But as we look ahead, I do wonder if there's an opportunity for us to make sure there's Republicans who are in Massachusetts, make sure they get representation, right? And make sure the people who are elected there represent those values, just like here in Memphis. But what is being done, I think it's important you mentioned the history, is very abnormal. Redistricting between census cycles is very abnormal, has not happened before. And it was done at the behest of the President of the United States of America, who wants to steal an election that he knows his party cannot win based on their ideas. They've gone on these endless wars. They have increased gas prices, increased grocery prices, made it more difficult for people to be able to access healthcare and childcare. And yet, billionaires have gotten more billions than they ever could have imagined. The president himself has gotten $2.2 billion since he's been in office. That's what we're dealing with. And he knew he was going to lose the U.S. Congress, the U.S. House, pretty horribly, and is doing everything he can to steal the election because they know they can't win it based on the ideas that they're pushing, which is why we're still running in Congressional District 9 because we see an opportunity to win. And there are enough people who are on our side who aren't just Democrats, but who are independents and some disaffected Republicans who want a different version of this country than what we're currently living in.
This, what you're saying sort of reminds me of the No Kings movement. It may seem like it's disjointed from what we're talking about, but there was a general feeling that that was going to be a violent event taking place nationwide, riots all over, and there has never been a protest that loud in this country. that many people, not one incident,
Not one.
not one. And that's to me, that's more scary than a riot. That's more scary than a riot.
Especially to them. And there's actually new research that came out last week. Was it last week or just recently that said you have to have 3.5% of the general population consistently and persistently engaged against authoritarianism to be victorious. So the No
Hmm,
Kings protest, these things matter for us to stand up against these elected authoritarians who are in positions of power and doing everything that they can to both consolidate power and also corrupt the system enough to financially capitalize off of the corruption. That's what we are witnessing, right? They don't want the democratic institutions to work for you and me. They don't want us to have access to the ballot. So they want to pass the Save America Act. But they want it to be dysfunctional enough for the President of the United States to sign contracts for his friends to give them millions of dollars to build the ballroom, to self-aggrandize himself with $2 billion. These are very intentional actions that continues a level of sickness and a level of corruption that should disgust every American, no matter if you're Republican, Democrat, or Independent. It is not okay for public officials to profit off of their positions when they're the ones making the decisions that they're profiting off of.
hmm,
Like,
hmm,
this is
hmm,
abhorrent. And everyday people are struggling to eat, struggling to house themselves, struggling to give their kids, the resources that they need for school. And yet, the billionaires in this country make more billions because they're the ones who are supporting us with going to war, building the drones that are being used in war. And then it just so happens the president's son owned drone companies now and they get a government contract. Like, this is a horrible, horrible existence we're dealing with in this country, and it does not and should not be this way. And every time I wonder how to convince some people about how bad things are, I just say, what if President Obama had done this?
hmm.
What if?
Yeah,
And imagine the response people would have.
I find it amazing that we talk about the thousands or maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars that Hunter Biden allegedly made, and the president's sons are making billions,
Right.
millions, millions off of Middle Eastern countries. That's amazing. But getting back to your train of thought, do you think that the behavior of the MAGA Republicans is in any way responsible for the increase in the number of independents in this country? Because now the latest study is that 47% of Americans identify themselves as independents rather than Democrat or Republican.
Absolutely. I think the extremism has made people sick. This Republican Party does not have any principles. And so people are feeling without a party. And I got to be honest with you, sometimes Democrats are doing things that are way too similar to Republicans, which is why I'm not taking any corporate PAC money. Democrats shouldn't be taking corporate PAC money. I'm not allowing them to contribute at all to my campaign because I want people to know this campaign's people powered and we're focused on serving people independently. I don't take any APAC money. Too many Democrats and Republicans are taking APAC money. I don't take any crypto money. Too many Democrats and Republicans are taking crypto money. I don't take any AI money. Too many Democrats and Republicans are taking AI money. And I don't take big pharma, big tobacco, none of those guys. Because when you take their money, ultimately they have a perspective that they want for you to push. And you have to be able to stand in your integrity and say, no, I believe in universal health care for everybody. So I can't vote for legislation that is against that idea. And it's made some people turn off, some corporations, they try and reach me through other people, trying to say, no, but are you sure you don't want our money? And then some Democrats are like, well, some Democrats are saying, well, if you don't take the money, then how can I trust that you're going to support us on these policies? And it's like, I will always do what's in the best interest of my constituents, point blank and period. There's no and if or buts about that. And what's in the best interest of my constituents is making sure that I'm not beholden to any other interest than the people in Congressional District 9. And even in this race that I'm in, I'm the only elected official in this race who's never taken a dollar of corporate PAC money. Then you get people who are talking one way, but when you look at their financial statements, they're getting money from people a whole different way. This moment requires principled people, and I think that's why you see more independence.
Great question. Great answer. Uh, there is nothing nice about the downgrading of the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Department, also known as ICE. They have become the president's personal police force. You have taken a stand on ICE. Would you care to um, share that with our audience?
Absolutely. Look, I think we have to abolish and restructure ICE completely. It has become a weapon of the President of the United States, a tool of white supremacy. There are people who participated in January 6th who are now ICE agents. There are people who sought to overthrow the government of the United States of America who are now ICE agents. There are folks who didn't have to do any background checks, who didn't have to do anything to become ICE agents other than agree to participate in the horror and the terrorism of separating us from our neighbors. I don't think that's the best that our country can do. And I'm against all of these occupations in our cities, particularly Black-led and Democratic cities of this administration. In fact, just yesterday, we had a 20-year-old young man, Black man, shot and killed by the National Guard in Memphis, Tennessee. The American military killed an American citizen on American soil. This is unconscionable. And when you think about if this had happened under President Obama's tenure, what would the response of people have been who were Republican or conservative? We have to realize that what we are experiencing is not okay. And we can't normalize the separating of families. We can't normalize the horror that is happening in this country right now. And the silence of too many elected officials, including Democrats, is deeply troubling and problematic to me because we have a responsibility to stand up for those who are last, lost, and least. Do we have a problem with our immigration system? Yes. That means we need more judges. That means we need more pathways to documentation. It doesn't mean we need more exploitation of the most vulnerable people, already the most vulnerable people in our cities, in our towns, in our country. And the ramifications of this, the trauma from this, the terrorism from this will last for generations. And so that's why I have called for an immediate abolition and restructuring of ICE and a firing of these agents who have contributed to the deaths and the horror that we've experienced in our country.
They, as you mentioned this, which I had not been aware of, about the National Guard uh, killing an African American man there in Tennessee. It's a reminder to me of Kent State. And uh, when I think of the national response that I'm not hearing now, and what the national response was at Kent State,
Mhm.
I mean, there was um, huge national outrage. And as you uh, just said a little while ago, certain things that should be outrageous are being normalized.
Yeah.
And this is moving down a very, very bad path if this is the way that um, we're going to tolerate this type of action in our cities. Um, I'm an old veteran, military veteran.
God bless you.
Thank you. And I went to a a conference of veterans about 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago, and I learned something. And I just wanted to. I learned something about the Richard Starr Act, which many people are not familiar with. And I'll just explain that for our audience. The Richard Starr Act is Richard Starr, Sergeant Richard Starr was a lieutenant, Major Richard Starr was wounded in Afghanistan, um, and as a result of that, there were this act was um, to give additional benefits to soldiers and their families who were either wounded in combat or killed in combat. And there was a bipartisan uh, bill that was put forth to prevent certain benefits from being taken away. I mean, they're in the process now of taking away uh, for injuries like PTSD and other injuries from our service people. And the fact came out that only 20% of our United States legislature has served in the armed forces, which is a record low. Uh, our veterans hospitals are in bad shape. The way we treat veterans, and we're just coming out of combat, is awful. Do you have any feelings about how our veterans are being treated and things that we can do to improve the way we treat our veterans, particularly those in combat?
Absolutely. My grandfather served in the 101st Airborne in Vietnam.
Ooh.
Jumped out of Screaming Eagles. He jumped out of 1,874 planes and helicopters for this country and earned two Purple Hearts in the process. Was exposed to Agent Orange, but was denied access to full benefits until just a few years ago. And he said to me, he said, "Grandson, they were waiting on me to die." And a lot of the people he served with actually had already passed away. The way the veterans are treated is disrespectful and disgusting in this country. And we deserve to do a better job by those who've served us. And I thank you immensely for your sacrifice and service, and also your family's sacrifice and service to this country to make the ideals a reality. But there are a few things we need to do to support veterans, and I meet with veterans every month because this is a really important issue for me. Um, I've done the research, and in District 9, $500 million is denied to veterans in District 9. Let's think
Wow.
about it. $500 million in pensions and compensation that should be coming to people here never makes it. That's money
Mm-hmm.
for school, for homes, for healthcare, for kids to go to school that we don't get. And no one talks to veterans to figure out how we solve it. Democrats don't talk to them enough, and Republicans lie to them. And, we got Republicans in charge in our state, the governor, the state house, the state senate, but no one advocates on behalf of veterans. And so they suffer, which is why I believe we need a full reevaluation of the ratings programs in the VA. We need to make sure that that system is equitable and fair because it seems that some veterans go and they get higher ratings than other veterans. And I've met too many veterans who've had to hire attorneys just to get their claims heard in order for them to get access to the benefits they deserve. And we need to have more transparency in the medical records that are being reviewed by the VA because people are entering into service with no injuries, no mental illnesses. They're coming out with mental illnesses, with physical injuries, and being told, "Oh, that didn't happen while you were in service," as if people who serve this country are going to lie about what has happened and what has occurred to them. And so I think we do need to have a complete reevaluation of how veterans are treated. And in this country, the richest country in the world, we should make sure that the billions of dollars that we somehow come up with to go and kill innocent people across the world actually serves people in this country. that we make sure no veteran is unhoused, no veteran goes hungry, no veteran goes without medical care, and that we do the hard work of going to find those veterans who are unhoused and get them wraparound services. We do the hard work of supporting people the moment they leave the service. We support them to get the care that they need and that they deserve and that they have earned for us. We should all be so disappointed in our country that there are veterans who wear their Vietnam vet hat, or some still wear the Korean War hat, or these folks who served in Desert Storm or Iraqi Freedom, and they're outside of gas stations panhandling. That should be an embarrassment for our country. And so I am very adamant that we can and should do better by our veterans. My father is a chaplain at the VA. We need more veteran services officers to meet the caseloads, but we also need a paradigm shift that realizes that veterans deserve more and deserve better than what the federal government is giving them. And instead of investing in veterans, we've been investing in war making. We've been investing in making the Congressional military industrial complex into a multi-billion dollar operation instead of meeting the needs of our veterans and their families. And that's the paradigm shift I'm going to take with me to the United States Congress.
Honorable Representative Pearson, you come from a family that obviously values education.
Mhm.
Uh, it's evidence in the way that you conduct yourself and the way you speak. But now, in the past 2 years, we've had a gutting of the Department of Education. How does that get turned around? I mean, we've gone from having educators leading the Department of Education to a wrestling uh, magnate running the Department of Education.
We got to keep telling the truth about what's happening. These people are some of the worst folks ever to lead in government, and none of them deserve the positions that they have. They bought them. They bought those positions. Somebody who runs WWE knows nothing about education, but they do know about destruction, and that's all they're trying to do. They're trying to destroy these institutions as best and as quickly as they can without anyone having any check or balance to it, which is why they're trying to steal congressional districts, because they know once Democrats are in charge, we are going to have some accountability for the actions that these people who've been selected by this president are taking. And also realize a lot of what happens with education happens at the state level. And so you got to have people be aware of what is going on in the state houses and how they are also seeking to dismantle and to destroy education as a source and as a tool for people to get independent access to information that liberates their understanding about the world that we are in and the world around them by taking textbooks that are corrupt with information, saying things like people who were enslaved were just laborers, unpaid laborers. There's little things like that that we have to continue to watch, particularly at the state level. And then let's just be clear here. Do not just rely on the school system to educate our children. We have to buy the books, read the books with kids. Grandmama needs to read it, uncle needs to read it, auntie needs to read it, parent needs to read it. We need to start educating ourselves and making sure that our children are learning who they are, whose they are, and what responsibility they have to this constitutional democratic republic experiment. Because we cannot just rely on what the state is telling us to teach our kids to be what they need to know to be productive members of this society. We're going to have to take some responsibility and ownership in our churches, in our organizations to teach, to educate, and to train the next generation of children as well.
Honorable Representative Pearson, this time has just flown by. I'm looking at my watch and I'm going, oh my goodness. But uh, I'd like for you right now to remind our audience about your candidacy and how they can support you in your candidacy and any closing remarks that you would like to make to your constituency.
Absolutely. First, let me again say thank you so much for making this time for me to talk with you today. I'm truly grateful. And to all of you listening, I'm Justin J. Pearson, candidate for the United States Congress, District 9 in Tennessee. I'm currently a member of the Tennessee House of Representatives, District 86. And I have a deep conviction and a deep belief that what the Neo Confederacy is trying to do in destroying our district of Memphis and breaking it into thirds is going to backfire because we are building a people power campaign that can win. And to win, we need folks to donate resources financially and also time. You can phone bank from anywhere in the country. Go to votejustinj.com. I'd greatly appreciate your support if you go to votejustinj.com because we can still win. And this moment in American history requires all of us to do more to fight for the rights that were fought beforehand and for the future generation of people as well. So thank you all so much. And again, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. It was definitely our pleasure, and we wish you the best of luck in your quest to go to Congress for District 9 of Tennessee. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, my friend.
Ladies and gentlemen, firstly, I just want to thank Honorable Tennessee State Representative Justin J. Pearson for appearing on this installment of Issues and Answers. He is a part of this new wave of young politicians who seem to have the same zeal as the activist leaders who sought elective office in the 60s and 70s. In case you don't remember, Birch Bayh of Indiana, Honorable Andrew Young of Georgia, Joseph Biden of Delaware, Kwesi Mfume of Maryland, and several others. We need to pay attention and support these new sources of energy for the movement to make this nation a more perfect union. Yet, let's not throw out the baby with the bathwater. Yes, we need an infusion of new energy, but never at a cost of losing the experience and wisdom of established leaders with integrity and courage. I hear a lot of new candidates using the word fight, but everything is not a fight. Even some of the most pressing issues of our time, such as livable wages, healthcare, tax reform, gun control, and education, can only be solved by intelligent compromise. Look at the history of this nation. Extremists never solved one problem. They created problems. The near annihilation of indigenous Americans was promoted by extremists such as President Andrew Jackson and his Indian removal law. Jackson is an idol of our current president. He has a picture of President Jackson prominently placed in his office. Any wonder? Segregation was another sanctioned policy of extremists that has had generational impacts that remain with us to this very day. Today, we are faced with an authoritarian assault on our democratic republic. It is not hidden, it's not subtle, it's an in your face tactic utilized by Hitler and Mussolini. And just as they had, our modern day American despots have millions who love and worship them for what they are doing. I remind you that Donald Trump has twice won elections because of America's hatred of strong, educated women. That is quite similar to racist hatred of strong, educated African Americans. Can you believe that I was recently criticized by someone who said they would never vote for me again because I used big words? Crazy, but that is the world in which we live. Remember those ignorant African American guys in a barbershop who were visited by former President Barack Obama, the first African American president of the United States? They told him they would never vote for a woman, especially a black woman. They told him they were going to vote for Donald Trump because Donald Trump gave them a COVID-19 check. That was far from the truth, but it played into that racist stereotype of Black folks always looking for handouts that they did not have to work to earn. As pathetic as that display of arrogant ignorance was, few have called it out the way I have done several times on this program. Their "thank you, boss" attitude solidified an erroneous image of Black people in the minds of many, and definitely in the minds of the future president of the United States. Now, for a minute, I'm going to switch to Georgia. Gubernatorial candidate Rick Jackson was invited to speak to people at a barbershop located on Old National Highway in Atlanta. Some people hate the fact that Rick Jackson was invited to a predominantly African American establishment. He certainly received a warmer welcome than the first African American president received when he visited a similar establishment in 2016. Think about that. We should open, we should be open to conversation with any candidate of any political persuasion. When you don't do that, certain politicians take your vote for granted and never mount a decent campaign in your neighborhoods and eventually feel they owe you nothing because you ask for nothing except their smiling face. On multiple occasions, Rick Jackson has pledged allegiance to President Donald Trump. That is the same Donald Trump who actively campaigned for the death penalty of 5 young Black men for a rape they did not commit. Because of his political influence in New York, those men were wrongly convicted. Their conviction was overturned by overlooked evidence years later. Yet Trump stood by his belief that they still should be executed. This is the same Donald Trump who was successfully sued for housing discrimination. This is the same Donald Trump who, during the beginning of his second term in office, fired the most experienced and most influential general in our military, an African American. This is the same Donald Trump who gutted the Department of Education and installed as its leader a wrestling promoter. This is whom Rick Jackson worships and adores. These should be disqualifying qualities that any American, especially an African American, should consider. Yet many just don't care. Just as Eve in the Garden of Eden, all you require is a good smile and good words and a nice rub on the back or head. And I will close with one profound thought. When it comes to the illegal Iranian war, most of you are concerned about the high cost of gasoline, the increase of cost of food, and other life essentials because of this illegal and unnecessary war. But guess what you are not talking about? You're not talking about the 13 lives lost of our military and the scores of others who are in our military who were wounded by missiles. You are not talking about the thousands killed, including children in a school, by bombs and missiles used by this country. This is the same type of thinking that occurred when millions of Jews were being slaughtered in Europe. So, see how easy it is to become callous and short sighted? Remember that poem I talked about at the beginning? First they came. I'm not going to read it today, but I am going to say I thank you for listening. I thank uh, the Honorable State Representative Justin J. Pearson for being with us today and imparting his views on what he perceives as his goals for Tennessee District 9. I thank you so much. Reminding this was a special edition of Issues and Answers, and I look forward to seeing you in the very, very near future. Until then, be smart, Stay safe. God bless you.